Mizzurna Falls is a 1998 open-world horror mystery thriller developed by Human Entertainment. The plot is incredibly ambitious, especially for the time that the game was made in. It's a game that I think that you should definitely play, but I understand if you haven't. It's a PS1 game, and it's an open-world PS1 game. It's pretty good, but it's incredibly obtuse. It doesn't control very nicely, and it has some extremely harsh time limits on everything. The game consists of 7 days, and you need to be doing specific things during those 7 days at specific hours, or else you'll just trigger the bad ending. So it's not a great player experience, and I get that, but I think it's a story that everyone needs to know about, because this game deals with some stuff that you don't see other games deal with, even today. So this is a video for all of you that will never play it, because this is Mizzurna Falls Explained. Matthew gets up early and tries calling Winona at her house, but it's her dad that picks up the phone, and he says that she went to the lake early this morning to look for something. Which makes sense, since that's the last place that Matthew saw Emma. He finds Winona at the lake and demands that they go see what the locker key that Emma was hiding is for, and Winona relents and agrees to tag along. After tricking the on-duty teacher Liz to let them in, they open the locker and find a floppy disk and a disposable camera. Matthew says that he's gonna take the film to get developed, as the pictures might contain clues as to where she would have gone, and then figure out what to do with the floppy disk. And Winona says that she'll go visit Father Burton and try and dig some more answers out of him, and maybe figure out why Kathy and Emma knew each other and hung out, and how half the town seemed to know about it but not Emma's best friends. Matthew drops off the camera at the photo kiosk and then heads to the station, and he gets Mary Lou to take a look at the floppy disk. She says that it contains sound data and that she won't be able to play it because it's supposed to be inserted into a keyboard or some other kind of digital instrument. Emma plays the piano, and Matthew remembers seeing one at her house, so he drives over there and asks Sarah about the floppy, and if they have a piano it fits in, and they do, and the floppy disk does fit. A bittersweet composition plays, and Matthew figures that he should ask James if he knows anything about it, since he seems to know so much about Emma and what she was into, for some reason. At the hospital, Matthew asks if James knows about the song, which is called Eternal, like the book of philosophy that she was reading, and he very cryptically replies that Matthew will get his answer if he comes to the bar at 10 PM tonight. Matthew calls Morgan to update him on his progress, and Morgan suggests that they meet up at the diner for burgers and a chat. At the diner, Lorraine doesn't seem like her normal cheery self, and she seems very on edge, getting startled at every little noise and every sudden movement. Just as Morgan shows up to the diner, two armed and masked thugs burst through the door and start pointing their guns at people and demand that Lorraine empty the register and that everyone else surrenders their wallets and valuables. Morgan and Matthew initially tried and defused the situation, but after Matthew gets pistol whipped, Morgan yells at him to just hand his money over, as it's not worth dying over. The thugs then make their escape, and in the aftermath, Morgan questions Lorraine, asking her just how much she thinks they took, and she says that it's a lot since she didn't take last night's earnings to the bank just yet. Matthew sticks around and waits for Morgan to leave, and then he confronts Lorraine and asks if one of the thugs was Mel. She tries to deny it, but Matthew lets her know that he overheard her and Mel planning it yesterday, and then she gives up and tells Matthew that Mel is gonna be hiding at the Aston Farms workers' lodgings, and Matthew then heads there. At the lodgings, he quickly spots Mel's accomplice, and then he follows him from the shadows and enters their hideout. Matthew spies on Mel talking to the bald guy from the bar, but then he gets busted when Mel's accomplice walking out of the bathroom sees him snooping, and then a fight erupts. Matthew gets the upper hand in the brawl, and the bald guy pulls out a gun on Matthew, but just as the bald guy is about to shoot Matthew in the head, sirens are heard outside and he runs off instead, leaving Mel and his accomplice to get caught. Matthew asks Morgan how he knew to come here, and he says that Lorraine called. He's angry that Matthew went off on his own, but he's glad that he's okay. Matthew tells him about the bald guy and that he probably has the money now. What is strange though is, where is Emma's diary? Mr. Perry saw a guy sneak out of the Rowland house dressed just like Mel and his accomplice, so Matthew thought that the diary would be at their hideout, but it's not. He figures that he should pop by Mel's house and check if it's there, and it is, so Mel was the burglar that Sarah saw. In the pages of the diary, Matthew learns that the wild Emma that half the town knows about was apparently the real Emma, and that the person that Winona and Matthew knew was a facade she put up. She knew all these people and all their problems. She had friends like Isabella, Kathy, Mel, and James that none of her friends at school knew about, including what most people thought to be her best friends. The diary mentions that Isabella is in danger and that Kathy is involved. Matthew wonders what the hell that just means and what it has to do with Emma's disappearance. On his way back to the station to help interrogate Mel, he stops by the photo place to pick up the photographs, but the clerk says that Winona already picked them up, like he told her to do, which is weird, because he didn't. Strange. Matthew hands over the diary to Morgan and says that Mel has to know where Emma is. Morgan is crass like he usually is, but he thanks Matthew and deputizes him, making him an official part of the investigation. After all, he's uncovered more vital evidence on his own than the entirety of the department combined, at least according to Morgan. Emma's diary states that she was supposed to meet Mel on the 23rd, which Matthew can confirm as he has the receipt from Mel's hotel room on the 23rd. But according to Mel, he didn't meet Emma on the 23rd, but both Morgan and Matthew are pretty sure that he did. And they know he met her on the 24th according to his own witness statement. So they just have to find some concrete proof that they were in the same room on the 23rd, and also figure out what this thing is that Emma keeps mentioning that Kathy needs. Matthew goes to check the motel room guest book and learns that a Kathy Rowland, Kathy and Emma's names combined, did stay at room 3 on the 23rd, and the clerk even says that she hasn't actually checked out yet, but that the spare key is missing. Matthew has a weird hunch that he knows where the key is, and he drives up to the church that's on the same hill as the motel. He asks Father Burton if he's seen a motel room key in Kathy's room. Father Burton goes in and checks, and there it is, and he hands it over, and Matthew heads back to the motel and enters the room. The room initially looks relatively undisturbed aside from an unmade bed, but in the bathroom there is a red substance splattered all over and the word epoch written in the substance on the mirror. Matthew begins combing the room for clues, and behind a lamp he finds drugs labeled epoch, and he decides to go visit Samuels and see if he can get him to look at them so he can find out exactly what they are and what they are for. On the way there, Matthew stops for gas and he uses the occasion to check in and see if Winona is home, which she is, and he asks her about the pictures. She apologizes for just taking them and shows Matthew the one that's of interest. It's a picture of a bridge in the park with a no entry sign on it. Apparently there is a sacred Native American site just beyond the gate, and it's closed to the public for some reason. With that question fresh in his mind, he continues his journey to the hospital to get the drugs tested, and stops by James' office to ask about the site. James says that he doesn't know why it's blocked off. There is just a cave and a cave painting in there. If someone really wanted to, they could just climb the cliff face nearby and gain entrance into the cave. But that Matthew should probably just go ask Morgan for permission if he wants to go in and see the paintings and look for clues. Matthew asks him about the pills as well, and he says that he doesn't know anything about drugs. Matthew then asks Samuels, who says that he should ask James since he used to be a pharmacist and knows more about this stuff than he does. That's strange. Matthew doesn't have time to figure out why James would lie, and he swings by the station to ask for Morgan's permission to enter the caves. And Morgan accompanies him to the site and they begin investigating. Inside, they take a look at the titular cave's cave painting. Apparently, the design is supposed to look like the natives are praising the sun, but it doesn't really look like that to Matthew. It looks more violent. There aren't any clues inside the cave that could point to where Emma was coming from or where she was going, so they both head outside to look in the surrounding area. And here they run into Cohen, who's out patrolling the site like he usually does. But it's a little late for that, isn't it? Not finding any signs of Emma in the area, Matthew begins making his way to the bar to see what will happen at 10 PM like James cryptically told him to do. While waiting at the bar, he asks James about the cave painting, and James confirms that they aren't praising the sun. They are dead bodies that someone is trying to resurrect, and that the site was where the natives used to perform the death journey ritual. Before James can explain the ritual, Isabella comes out on stage and begins singing.
Rain, lights fall from the sky.
The melody, it's eternal, like from the floppy disk, and the lyrics, they're describing the death journey ritual, how the native used it to send someone temporarily to the afterlife so that they could gain the vast knowledge of their ancestors, including maybe the secret to immortality, and bring that knowledge back to the world of the living.
Like a stream inside my life, ray lights surrounding me, and me with the limbo. Ray lights infinity, sacred symbols I've seen them somewhere. Moments, stops and songs, sunbathed into the hair.
Matthew asks James if Isabella has been singing here long, and he says that she only moved to town a month ago. He tries to go talk to her up on stage, but one of Isabella's overzealous fans then attacks him. Matthew fights off the stalker and Isabella thanks him, but before he can ask her any questions, she disappears. Matthew asks James if he knows how to get in contact with her, and he tells him to just follow her when she leaves the bar at midnight. Isabella leaves as scheduled, and Matthew tails her to the dumpy apartment building in town. Matthew loses her trail when she enters the building, and he doesn't want to go knocking on every door to find her, not at this hour at least, not in this neighborhood. But he does have one lifeline here. Nas is a resident of the building, and surely he must know her and what number she lives in. He doesn't know an Isabella, but when Matthew describes her, he exclaims that he knows who that is, he just didn't know her name. Nas says that a lot of dodgy looking men come in and out of that apartment, and that Matthew should stay away from there and go chase some other woman. Not being one to do what he is told, Matthew then of course goes to her door and tries to look through her keyhole, and one of the dodgy looking men shows up and knocks him out. When Matthew comes to himself, he is in what he thinks is Isabella's apartment, and while rummaging through her stuff, she comes out of the bathroom only dressed in a towel, and then turns on some music. Nothing ever comes of the towel thing, she doesn't take it off. Yeah, don't be horny. She tells Matthew that he shouldn't go snooping around, because something bad could happen, not as a threat, but as a warning. She asks if he's looking for Emma, and he replies that he is. Isabella says that she doesn't know her well, but she kind of knows what she was going through, feeling lost, not feeling like she belongs. She used to be like that herself, when she lost her husband in a car accident. Her husband was Wolf's brother, the owner of Wolf's Bar, and Wolf asked Isabella to come to town and live here while she put her life back together. Isabella was in the car when her husband died. They were both in an accident. Isabella was even legally dead for a while and when she was resurrected, there was a melody stuck in her head, and she wrote it down as a composition. She didn't have a name for it until Emma suggested Eternal, and Isabella thought that it couldn't be more fitting. The phone rings, and Isabella tells Matthew to leave and don't come back, because something might happen if he does. Someone else might be here, and they might not just knock him out like the last guy did. Before Matthew leaves, Isabella says that she's made a deal with the devil, and that she's traded her life for her freedom. Matthew offers to help, but she says that he's just a kid. She appreciates it though, and then tells Matthew to get the hell out of here before someone comes by and checks up on her. A certain he. A person that Matthew definitely don't want to run into. Matthew, for once, does as she suggests and heads back to his shed.